This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gold.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. It is I, Old Gingerface, coming at ya! Again. Kind of screwed up the intro, which is insane since I've done it well over 200 times, but still not nailing it. But I like to do it live every time. I used to do the early episodes. I was like really obsessed with editing and making sure I said every word right and that there wasn't ums and ahs. And ultimately, it started to drive me insane. So I don't actually do any editing anymore. I just let it go live. I kind of pretend like it's on the radio. No backseas, whatever. The only time I do any editing is if a guest says, "Oh, I called this lieutenant an a-hole and I said his name." Like if a guest wants me to do something, I will absolutely do it because I want them to be comfortable with the product. But if I screw up, you're gonna hear all that, guys. So I really appreciate you being here, joining us. Appreciate all the rating and reviewing, as I always say that's going on, and the Patreon support. It's awesome. And if you're new to the show, just like I said in the intro, this show has real police officers, active and retired, and they tell their stories as they lived them, totally unedited, so that everybody can hear what it's actually like to be a police officer and how insane some of the stuff actually is. And it's pretty much every interview I'm blown away. It's it's nuts what cops deal with on the job, and I think it's so friggin' interesting, and I feel like it's a privilege that I get to sit down once a week or twice a week sometimes with these men and women and hear these wild stories that they live. So all that to say, we have an excellent guest on today. He's LAPD. He was detective. He was on the job total of 35 years, retired LAPD detective. He's also a peer support team member for the Wounded Blue organization, which is a fantastic organization that we will obviously talk about. We've had a few of their members on before. Without further ado, let me bring on the great Barry Telis. Barry!
Hey, Steve. How's it going, man?
Good, brother. Good to have you. I like the safe that's right behind you there. That's a big one.
Oh, yeah.
How many guns does that hold?
A lot. and it's just about full.
God bless you,
you
man.
Never know.
You never know.
He who dies with the most guns wins.
Yeah, absolutely. We moved to a new house over 3 years ago now, and kind of in an area away from my family that lives in Massachusetts. They all live about 3 hours away. So I had the task of like we've moved a few times, and if I can, I'll leave my gun safe there, give the combo to the new owner, and just hopefully it's worked out. Every time they've been a gun enthusiast, so like, oh hell yeah, I'll take the safe, because moving them sucks. So I went and got one at Tractor Supply. No, it sucks. I went to Tractor Supply, so I went pretty low end. I got one of the Winchester 30 gun safes, but I had to buy one with the weight threshold low enough that like me and another dude could move it, because
good luck with that, because I wouldn't even attempt to try to move this thing. It's like almost 1,100 pounds and more when it's full.
Yeah, see, mine's just like a glorified gun cabinet. Like you knock on my door and it's like, the Winchester safes are like hollow. There's no solid door.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. A good friend of mine is a big safe dealer here in town in Las Vegas, and he's like, "Oh no, you don't want to go with that. You want to go with this."
Yeah, mine is just the only thing mine does. If someone breaks in and we're not here and they want the guns, okay, they'll get them. I just want them secured from the kids and secured on the premises, so that until I get to the point where I'd love to buy one. A friend of mine's dad bought one that was I forget what company, but they pay for two or three lifetime moves. They will move it for you for free.
That's a great deal.
But the safe is the size of the size of a Sub-Zero refrigerator. Like you could get in it and
that's humongous.
And it's lacquered.
Humongous.
It's got a finish on it like a car.
Oh, beautiful.
It's gorgeous. But
those are those higher end safes.
Yeah.
I was lucky. I got a really good deal on this one because a buddy of mine was on the job and he was our safe cracker for the department. And he opened up a safe shop in Lake Havasu, and and I bought one from him. He delivered it from Lake Havasu to Las Vegas for free, and
Oh,
just
damn.
it was such a smoke. It was such a smoking deal that I, I I have zero complaints.
Yeah, I'm getting some envy. I got to up my game and call your buddy. Will he deliver to Massachusetts for
Yeah,
free?
he'll ship it, but that's going to cost a fortune
Right.
because it all goes by weight.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no bueno. So Barry, you
Yeah, right.
you did over 30 years on LAPD. That's a long career at a major metropolitan police department. You've seen a lot
Yeah,
of stuff.
yeah. Tell me about it. I've seen just about everything you can think of, and how evil people are.
Yeah, and that
And
is
I've
a
seen the worst of the worst.
that is a big battle with cops too, not to get jaded towards human beings. Even, I grew up, my dad was a small town cop, and like I go do errands with him, and we drive through town, and he'd be like, scumbag, dirtbag, don't talk to him.
Yep.
She's a weirdo. Like his whole life, he
Yeah.
knew everybody in town and all their problems.
It's funny you say that. When I go back to Los Angeles, because I still have some family members still in California and LA, and every time I drive through any area that I worked, I always point out, oh, I handled a homicide there. I handled a homicide there. Oh, I remember this guy got his head blown off. Oh, I remember this a drug deal that went bad, and it just brings back memories. But when I go back to California, I just have the anxiety that I used to have when I was on the job. And it was like, get me out of this town. I want to go home.
Yeah, especially now. You picked a really good time to exit quietly because
Yeah,
SoCal
yeah,
is
I did.
as crazy as ever. Let's say.
SoCal is a shithole, and it's getting worse. And it's because of and I'm sure it's because of the local politicians, the governor, and and the taxes was the main reason why I moved. And I moved here, and my son was going to UNLV, and my mom passed away in 2020. And I thought, wow, I'm retired, and there's no reason for me to stick around anymore. So I just packed up one day, and it was just me, and I packed up and moved to Las Vegas, and I love it here. Love it here.
Yeah, that was the name of the game when I was at Backgrounds. It was, when I leave, I'm going to Idaho. I'm going to, Nevada. I'm going to the Pacific Northwest. Nobody was staying in SoCal. They all had a plan, unless they
No,
had their
and
family there.
yeah, and that's what it was when my son and my ex-wife moved here, and it's like, well, I'm going to be close to my son, and my daughter is in the Pacific Northwest. She's in Seattle. She goes to the University of Washington, and for some reason she wants to be a scumbag lawyer. But oh well. And so
Make that
and so
money.
that's why I said, yeah, she wants to be an environmental lawyer, and so I bought her a tree to put in the middle of her apartment so she can hug it every morning. But she's a really good kid. Both of my kids are great, great, great people, and I think I raised them properly.
That's
So
excellent.
I'm
Very,
actually very proud of that.
yeah, absolutely. That's something to be proud of because there's a lot of people out there not raising their end product is not so great because we do see it on the job. Who was your
Yeah,
mom and dad?
you see a lot. Yeah, a lot of cops' kids kind of
Oh
turn
yeah,
out kind of screwed up, get involved in drugs, and they just have a different outlook on life. That they're
yeah,
entitled, and that's one thing good about my kids. They worked hard for what they have, and they understand the meaning of hard work. And I
yeah,
think we've gotten away from that in society, that these kids seem to be entitled, and it's all about. I mean, I started working when I was 7 years old at my dad's liquor store in Echo Park, California,
nice.
and I was thrilled to be working there and making. Here I am, 7 years old. I'm dusting all the liquor bottles, and my dad said, "Okay, now you're going to work all day today, all day on Saturday, and at the end of the day, I'm going to pay you." I said, "Oh man, I'm going to get paid. I thought I had to do this for free." So he gave me a whopping dollar for the whole day in 19. Let's see, I was 1972. And I was like, wow, I got this dollar, man. I'm going to ride my bike to 7-Eleven, get and see how much candy I can buy with this dollar.
Yeah,
And back then you could probably you could buy a lot of candy back then.
yeah. Well, to defend your dad, $1 now would be like $4. So he was really paying you $4.
Yeah, child labor laws that didn't come into effect. And I was stoked.
Yeah,
I thought this was the greatest thing.
Yep, that's good. He
So
instilled work ethic in you young. That's what you need to do. And that the cop kid thing is so true, man. Because I was a cop's kid, and I was just a normal kid. I never had any problems with the law or drugs, any of that. But I was a minority. There was a lot of cop kids I knew that were in bad
yeah.
shape. Bad shape.
Oh, absolutely. I always was a pretty decent kid. Always into sports, and I was terrified to do something that my dad would find out because he would tune me up, and I was more terrified of my father than I was of the police.
Yep, that's the
And
way it's supposed to
you know,
be.
it's just it's and I think I turned out okay. You know, I had a 35-year career with LAPD, and I never got into any kind of nonsense on the department, and I always kind of flew straight and narrow. So,
Hey, it's working out for the podcast, so I'm glad it happened that way.
yeah, right.
Barry, can you go way back to a young Officer Telis on the job? Can you remember the first call that you had that, or one of the first calls that you had that gave you an adrenaline dump, really kind of got your blood going?
Oh yeah, I'll never forget it. When I came on the police department, I was 22 years old, wearing a uniform that was probably a little too big for me because I couldn't figure out how to tailor a shirt for the bulletproof vest.
Right, looking good.
And I remember jumping in the car. I worked in our Southeast Division, which is our Watts area, South LA area.
Rough.
And you know, I grew up in an upper middle class family, you know, kind of a silver spoon in my mouth, and now I'm pretty much in the ghetto. And it was a culture shock to me to see how people were, to see how violent people were. And I got this in the first year on the job. And I'll never forget one of the calls I had because Southeast houses 5 housing projects. It's the biggest housing project development in the city. This particular division. And I remember getting a call of shooting in progress, and we were just coming out of the station. And boy, you know, when you first come on the police department, you're completely overwhelmed with information,
Sure.
and it's like it was overwhelming. You know, I'm trying to keep the books, trying to do the log, trying to get logged on the stupid computer. And my partner says, "Come on, we're going. There's a shooting call. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go right now. Right now." And I was like, "Okay." I just kind of threw everything in the police car and jumped in the car, and we're hauling ass to this call, which is in one of the most violent housing projects in the city. It's called Imperial Courts, and it's all the way on the far, far east side of the division. So we're hauling ass down Imperial Highway. My blood's pumping. I'm like, I have no idea what to expect.
Yeah.
And we get there and we pull up, and there's a couple people down from a shooting. There's police officers. It's right on the border of the LA County Sheriff's Firestone Station. So we had LA County Sheriffs in there, LAPD. It was like a mishmash of police agencies. And as we're at the scene trying to secure the scene for this shooting, all of a sudden, from an AK-47, bam, just a bunch of rounds just go off.
Ooh.
I don't know. I don't think they were shooting at us, but they were definitely shooting. And talk about a pucker factor.
Yeah.
I thought my first day, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
I'm going to get shot. I'm going to die. And I'm 22 years old in this culture shock. I'm in culture shock at this point.
Yeah.
And it was the scariest time that I've ever, well, not the scariest time, but one of the most scariest times I've ever had on the police department. And it was my first day. And it was like, oh man, what did I sign up for? This is crazy.
Yeah. Culture shock. You might have been in actual shock.
Oh yeah, I think I was. And then when all the dust settled, I said, you know, this is pretty bitchin'. This is pretty fun. And I said, wow, I don't think I would have got that working at Costco or Price Club back then. And this is pretty darn cool.
Yeah, when you come
And
down a little bit
I
and those chemicals are still going through your body, then that's when you start to feel the good part. You're like, oh, I feel good.
I know. It was like, I said, you know, I said, man, I think I can do this job for free. I don't think they even have to pay me, but they're going to pay me? Oh, this is awesome. And I thought, wow, I do this shit for free.
That's awesome. And that's the difference too. Like there is depending, you don't know what your makeup is, because people always ask, like, how will I know if I'm cut out for it or whatever? Well, you might not, especially if you go to a smaller place and you don't experience something like that for a while. You might not know that you're going to have this dump, and then you're going to never want to go to work again. Like, some people just say, like, I was afraid I was going to die. I didn't know my body would react like this, and I'm resigning. And that's okay. I mean, if that's
right,
that's
it's not for you.
It's not for you. You should resign, because
you should resign.
Right. But like
Absolutely.
a place like
I totally agree with that.
Place like LA, you find out early. Other places, you can. I've always worked at smaller agencies. You can go to a call, and it's been a while since they've been on, and they're white as a ghost, and you can tell they're just hit sidelong by it. Like, oh my gosh, this is insane.
Right.
And
so that's a true fact, and that's what comes along with the job, is that we as police officers, we probably witness close to 100 traumatic events in our career, and the average person witnesses 2 or 3 traumatic events in their lifetime.
Yeah.
So the post-traumatic stress is runs rampant, and it's what I call a silent killer. And and people have to take care of themselves, and you have to make sure you take care of yourself, because you got to take care of yourself before you can take care of anybody else.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. I mean, if you know somebody who's not in law enforcement or emergency services and they see a dead body, they will talk about that for years. That will be like a story they have of like this thing that they...
For their whole life.
Yeah. They'll just talk and talk. Meanwhile, emergency services people, police officers are just piling them up. Just piling them up. So many.
Right. And that's a big problem with our profession, is that you bottle it up, because you don't want to tell anybody about it, because then you look weak.
Right.
And you don't want to look weak, because when we get to a call and we have to handle it, we have to be stone-faced. We have to be professional. We have to make sure that we're there for a reason, that we're getting paid to do a job. And when you bottle it up, it just snowballs. It just snowballs. It gets bigger and bigger, and you end up having, I've had many friends kill themselves, and it's because they didn't know how to deal with it, because a big thing is trust with the department. Because if you start saying that you're having issues and you're having nightmares and you're having this, the department's going to send you to a shrink. The shrink is going to say, okay, not suited for public contact. And then you're going to be on what we call the rubber gun squad. And then you're going to be put in a non-public contact position, and you can pretty much kiss your career goodbye.
Yeah, you'll spend the whole time trying to get out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the problem with law enforcement officers all over the country, probably all over the world. We deal with all this trauma, and nobody and managers look at us, and I don't say leaders, I call them managers, because there are leaders that you would follow into battle, and then there are managers who you don't want to have anything to do with. And unfortunately, the majority of command staff are managers. They're not leaders. And they don't care too much. They say their typical buzzword or typical line of the department is like, hey, you signed up for this. You don't have to be here. There's the door. And that's how they handle those type of situations. And you feel a little bit of betrayal. And so and then the stresses within the department build up on the stresses that you see outside when you're in the field, and it just builds up and it snowballs to where, more to taking your own life, and more cops kill themselves rather than gunfire and traffic accidents. 3 times more police officers kill themselves than they do in the line of duty under gunfire or traffic accidents or domestic violence calls, traffic stops. But more cops take their own lives because they can't handle it. And I like to say, the Wounded Blue is such a great organization, is that we help people cope with that. Active, retired, and a lot of people don't understand that we're humans too. The police officers are not recruited from a assembly line of robots. They recruit from the human race. And so we're no different than, we put our pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else does. And a lot of people don't see that. They look at us, especially within the last 5 years, 6 years, they look at us as racist, bullies, that we're
Yeah.
dirty. And that takes a toll on you. When people are saying that constantly in the news media and politicians, and then your own department doesn't back you, you feel like you don't have any sense of worth anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem in law enforcement today.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's everywhere. Like even I just did a post and someone commented, some rando commented, oh yeah, too bad that 40% of police officers beat their wives or whatever. And that's just one of those studies that came out that was like not like really peer reviewed. It was not like a tight study. Come to find out, when they asked police officers about this, that could have been anywhere from having a verbal argument with your wife to hitting her. So it's completely false, but they run with the 40%. And now that is, I saw that stat flying around the last couple of years, like everywhere, major newspapers. And it's not even true. And they don't care to print a retraction or anything. It's just, more stuff we're going to feed the public about you. And that's it. It's part of the zeitgeist now. Sorry. It's unreal.
Yeah. Oh, well, suck it up, buttercup. That's what they always tell us.
Right.
Suck it up, buttercup.
Yep. It's unreal.
And it's wrong, because it's wrong for management and for the public and the politicians to treat us that way, because like I said, we put our pants on one leg at a time. We're human beings, and people don't see that. And the stigma that comes along with being a police officer, that's why they're having recruiting issues all over the country. Nobody wants to be a police officer anymore. When I took the test for LAPD, I took it at Hollywood High School in 1986. And the line for police officer candidates was 7,000 deep. 7,000. The line went all the way down Sunset, north on Highland, wrapped around to Hollywood Boulevard to Orange Drive.
Yeah.
And I said, oh my God, there's no way I'm going to get hired by this agency. Everybody wants to do it. And they only have a certain amount of candidates. And I just threw my hat in the ring, and then I got hired. I got hired pretty quick, actually.
They still talk about those days at LAPD backgrounds, believe me. Like everybody used to want to come here.
Backgrounds. Backgrounds used to be a massive unit, as you well know. And now I think it's like 20 people, if that. Yeah. And now they have to reach out to people, to former candidates, and try to actively recruit them, when they never had to do that before. You just show up, and it's like, okay, here's your caseload. As working backgrounds, here's your caseload. You got 20 candidates just for you, and here you go. Get on it and complete them.
Yeah, it used to be like the U.S. Marines. Oh, what's the benefit? You get to be a Marine. What's the benefit? You get to be an LAPD policeman. That's it.
Right.
That's
LAPD.
No recruitment needed.
And
that's what we're doing.
And LAPD had probably the best reputation in the country. We were kind of the tip of the spear when it came to law enforcement, to modern law enforcement.
Right.
And what recruited me was watching Adam 12.
Yeah.
Remember that show?
Yep.
Great show, right? And I said, wow, these guys are professional. They get into a shooting and they have lunch in a half an hour. This is awesome. This is what I want to do.
That's funny.
It's like, wow, and that was the biggest recruiting tool for me. And then I lived close to the police station in a little town called Monterey Park, and I would ride my bike over to the police station just to hang out with them.
Yeah. I
said, hey, what kind of gun is that you carry? Hey, that's so cool. You guys get to carry a gun. That's so awesome. And I thought that was pretty. I thought that as a young kid, teenager, that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, so, absolutely. Yeah, there's so many things pushing against it too. Like the, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but the one that to me is the most hypocritical is the whole movement to of people with absolute immunity trying to remove qualified immunity from police. Yes. So everybody up the food chain from police have what they call absolute immunity. They can't be touched. The poor guys on the road going to these split-second decisions have what we called qualified immunity, which the court looks at to decide if you even have it. We're going to take that away. And that was a big problem with recruitment, too, because it was like, wait, I could be in trouble for, like, anything? I mean, do you ever remember them slapping cuffs on cops for a shooting? No, they're
No,
doing
never.
investigation. They would find out he's not a flight risk. Like, we know where he is, know where he works. We have all of his info. Oh, now they like arrest you on duty. It's like you're under arrest for shooting that person.
Yeah, they do.
It's freaking
Yeah,
unbelievable.
and who in their right mind would want to sign up for this?
Right.
When they can make, because we don't come on the police department to become millionaires.
Right.
We come on the police department to get a salary that's comparable. I still think it's too low, and risking your lives, making split second decisions, and now you have to worry about protecting your own life and going to prison, especially with some of these idiot woke DAs that they have, like George Gascon, who just finally got voted out.
Yeah.
It was scary. It was scary. In fact, when I would come to LA, luckily I retired before George Gascon came in, but I'll tell you what, I was nervous coming into LA because I always knew that, because I'm always carrying a gun.
Yeah.
And I was nervous that, wow, if I do something to protect my life or the life of somebody else,
you're
I
going
could go to prison for this.
Yeah.
And it's like, no bueno. That's why I avoided California, especially Los Angeles, for so long.
Yeah, the place you're most likely to shoot somebody, Southern California, is the place that will absolutely put you behind bars right away.
Yes, absolutely. And it's crazy. And that's what George Gascon ran on. He ran on, I'm going to prosecute cops. And I knew George Gascon. George Gascon was my commanding officer. When I was working Harbor Division, George Gascon promoted me from a police officer 3 to a police officer 3+1, and as a senior lead officer. And George Gascon did not believe any of this crap that he's saying now. He was about crime fighting.
That's what I hear.
He told us, he said, the only way to reduce crime is to keep people in jail. And he came up, when he was one of our assistant chiefs, he came up with, not to go off subject, but he came up with he said 90% of the crime is being committed by 10% of the population, and we have got to target that 10% of the population in order for crime to drop.
Ooh, that's not very PC, George.
Yeah, well, yeah, but different times.
Yeah.
And so what he did, he was the assistant chief of Office of Operations, which is basically that runs the entire department, the divisions, the outlying divisions. And he beefed up homicide, fugitives, detectives, because he said, patrol officers put someone in jail for 48 hours. The detectives are going to put them in jail for 48 years. And we have got to strengthen the detective band, the detective group. And we have got to target that 10% that's committing all the crimes in order for the crime to go down. And he was right, and it worked.
I like this old George Gascon you're talking of. He sounds like my kind of guy.
George Gascon, new George Gascon is he did a complete 180, and it was like, wow.
Yeah.
And when I was hearing him on the news and watching him on the news, I said, oh my God, that's sure, what a hypocrite. That is so not what he totally believes in.
I heard somebody in a podcast talk about that.
Sickening.
Some like a big conservative landowner in California backed him for his first run, and he was completely betrayed. He gave him all this money, and then he was on a podcast talking about it. He's like, I gave him all because I've known George since he was a cop, and I donated a large sum, and then he did a 180 on me, and I look like an idiot now. He just read.
It looks like that donor is now part of it.
Yeah, he said this is only hurting my businesses now. I own a ton of land and apartments, and now he's sticking it up my butt. Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's saying it kindly.
Yeah. So he really burned a lot of bridge. That's a mystery to be talked about another day. I don't know what the hell happened. He went to San Francisco and drank some funny water. Something happened. Barry.
Yeah, well, he was the co-sponsor of Prop 47 and 57. I mean, that just ruined the justice system in California. So what do they expect?
Yeah, absolutely. Barry, can you think back to a strange or bizarre moment from your career? I think we kind of touched on one before we started recording it. That was kind of funny.
I've had hundreds of bizarre moments in working the streets of Los Angeles for 35 years. I've had some pretty crazy ones. And I think that one of the most bizarre ones, because cops are pretty dark.
Yeah.
to say the least.
Dark
And
humor.
we try to make dark humor, and we try to make light of everything because it's a way of coping with stress.
Absolutely.
Not that we really mean a lot of stuff, but we do a lot of, we have very, very dark humor,
Yeah.
and nobody else could understand that. And I handled a case where it was a traffic accident, and the person that was in the traffic accident was his head was decapitated. So his
Oof.
body is in one place, and his head is in another place. And we are trying to identify the guy. The car been transferred over, and I was working traffic, maybe two. I had 2 years on the job, and my training officer was teaching me how to do traffic investigations. Because when I was a young cop, I avoided traffic accident investigations like the plague, because I didn't understand how to do them. And then once I figured out how to do them, they were actually pretty easy.
Yeah.
And this guy's head was decapitated. Coroner investigator came over, and got the guy's wallet. We get his ID, and my partner holds up the ID and holds his thumb over the picture, and he says, "Is this our guy?
Oh,
Is this him?"
jeez. Yeah.
I said, "I don't know. I don't know." He goes, "Well, let's check what color his eyes are, because this guy says his eyes are blue." And yeah, like one blue over here and the other one blue over there. And it's like, oh man, that's dark.
Yeah.
And everybody's laughing, and I'm like in shock. It's like, oh, okay, so this is what police work is all about.
Yep.
And it was a pretty bizarre case.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's just one of many.
The only profession I've ran into that rivals the police is the coroner. They are pretty dark dudes. Their senses of humor.
I don't think they know how to have a normal sense of humor.
No.
And working homicide for all those years.
Yeah, I saw one of them.
I dealt with coroners a lot.
I saw one of them scooping brain material off of the pavement with the victim's CDs. Hold it up and go, "Road mix." Like, and we're all like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay,
God.
buddy.
That's dark. That is so dark.
Very dark.
I have so many stories of dark humor.
Yep.
And I think that people hearing me, they're going to say that guy's pretty jacked up.
Yeah. Well, I've been at scenes before where it's like if someone there keeps their wits about them, you don't get too drawn into the smoking and joking. Someone will always elbow and be like, "Family's coming," or "There's family, approaching," or if someone who's not part of, someone's getting within earshot that's not part of this like little coping humor thing that's going on. Hopefully, someone with you will go, "Hey, shut up."
Yep. Yeah. Well, you're right, because keep your mouth shut for now. Let's save this stuff for when we get back to the station, where we're in a safe environment where somebody can't overhear you and misinterpret what you're saying.
Exactly.
Because that could leave an impression on somebody forever about police officers.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to have kids. They're going to pass it on to kids. Their kids are going to pass it on, and it could last forever. And I just want people to know that we're just like everybody else. And it's a coping mechanism. It's not that we care less. It's a coping mechanism for us to see the tragedy that we see on a daily basis.
Yeah, and it's not necessarily that we're making fun of a victim or something, but if you're on a scene long enough, it's like being at a wake for too long, and before you know it, you see that uncle you like, and now you're both laughing, and then you both realize there's a body right here, and you're like, oh, Aunt Mildred died. Maybe this isn't the place to catch up about, X, Y, and Z. But you've been there so long, and you're trying to cope with this sad situation, so just somebody to go by and see a bunch of cops laughing, and then like a blanket over a bot is like, it gets misinterpreted.
Yeah.
Big time.
Homicide scenes are the worst for that, because what happens when there's a homicide? The person's dead, the ambulance has come and gone, and they're pronounced dead. You're waiting for a homicide to get there. You get the homicide kit on the back of the police car, donuts and coffee, and you're just waiting around. And who's always there right when a murder happens? The media.
Yeah.
The media snaps a picture of a couple guys holding a cup of coffee, cracking up, and they catch them at that one moment in a still shot. and the body's 10 feet away, and yet you have two cops that are laughing.
Yeah.
Now, what they're laughing about is irrelevant. It's the public perception.
Yeah. Bad
And
optics.
I always tell patrol officers, I said, okay, I want you to make this perimeter as big as you can. I want to put the media up and around the corner. You put crime scene tape, they'll come right up to the tape. And I want you to make this homicide big. And I start planning a homicide when I would get the call at home at 2:00 in the morning. I would tell the patrol officers and the sergeant, I said, I want you to move the frickin' media out of the way, make this crime scene big, and then we can bring it in. And when I get there, or I make a determination or whatever it is. And so, they said, hey, detective, no problem. And they can't wait for you to get there,
Oh
because
yeah.
you get there and you take it over. But the optics and the way that the public perceives us is very important to how we do our job.
Yep.
And if you see on the front page of the Los Angeles Times some dead guy covered in a blanket in a sheet, and two cops standing over him laughing, holding a cup of coffee in one hand and a donut in the other hand, it just doesn't look good for the perception of what we as police officers do.
As the kids say, very cringe. No good.
Yes, yeah, right. Yeah, no, I call it no bueno.
No bueno.
No bueno.
Absolutely. Barry, can you tell us the most intense or terrifying call that you went on?
Yeah, it wasn't a call. It was during the 1992 unrest in Los Angeles, commonly known as the Rodney King riots
The
that we had
unrest.
in 1992. Yeah, and civil unrest is the PC term for it. But it was basically a citywide riot. And the last time the city has ever gone through a riot was in 1965, the Watts riots. And the Watts riots was contained to a very small area of Los Angeles. At the time, it was called 77th Division. Now it's called Southeast Division,
Right.
where I did my probation. And it started, the Watts riot started there, and it was contained to there. But the LA riots was throughout the entire city, from the San Fernando Valley to Hollywood to San Pedro, the ports. Every division in the city was affected by the 1992 riots. And I'll never forget when that verdict came down, the Rodney King verdict, and one of my academy classmates was one of the main players on the Rodney King beating. And so when the 92 riots happened and the verdict was announced, and I'll tell you, you talk about getting caught with your pants down. LAPD got caught with their pants down on this one big time, because there was never any plan if there was a not guilty verdict. And sure enough, not guilty, day shift ended. So that's thousands of people going home. And now we had this, it started up in our 77th Division. It started up at Florence and Normandy, which is the most famous intersection for where the flashpoint was for the 92 riots. And now, of all the 18 different divisions throughout the city, they're scrambling for people because we're completely overwhelmed. Now, I was working day shift. I got off work, but I always used to go and work out before I went home, just to kind of let the traffic die down. And I'm in the weight room working out, and I was like, wow, I'm listening to the radio, and they're talking about all this stuff going on. I go down to my workout clothes. I go down to the watch commander. I said, hey, what's going on? And he looks at me and he goes, you don't know what's going on? I said, no, I've just been listening to music, and I heard something on the radio, but I'm hearing a lot of activity. And this is supposed to be between shifts, so there should be a lot of activity in the locker room. He goes, yeah, suit up, get dressed, and we're sending you down to 77th. Get your helmet, your war bag, get everything ready. I said, oh, okay. So I suit up. I go downstairs into our detective area. I was working Hollywood Division at the time. And we sat around trying to figure out what they're going to do with this squad of people. And so there's a squad of people from Hollywood Division. There's a squad of people from Rampart Divisions. And we're just standing around waiting. And we're listening to the radio, and it's going crazy down in our 77th Division. And we're stuck. We're like, what are you doing? He goes, we don't have enough police cars. We don't have enough shotguns. we don't have enough radios. And
Oh
so
my
it was like,
gosh.
wow, okay, so what are we going to do? So about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, they load us up. We jump in police cars, or we jump in an MTA bus. Back then it was called the RTD bus. We
Wow.
jump in a bus. There's 40 of us. They ship us down to 77th Division to 54th and Van Ness, which is a bus depot. And there we sat and sat. And right when we got there, we had to give them our keys to our car, our shotguns, and our radios. And it's like, okay, stand by. We're going to deploy you, but we just don't know when. And just hurry up and wait. And then in the meantime, we got people from all over the state coming in.
Yeah.
California Highway Patrol, Downey PD, Southgate PD, every police department around was sending people to what we called the Black Hole, which was 54th and Van Ness. And we're just waiting around. And it was frustrating because we're listening to the radio that's mounted in the police car, and we can hear help call after help call after help call. I need help. I'm taking rounds. I need help. I'm taking rounds. And
Oh
we're
my
sitting
gosh.
around waiting, and we're like, hey, man, we'll walk. If you don't have a car, we'll walk. No, you can't do that. No, it's an order. Stand down. And it was very, very frustrating.
Yeah.
And here I am, 25, 24, 25 years old. And I'm like, man, our brother officers are taking rounds and we can't do anything. Very, very
Damn.
frustrating.
Yeah.
So when they finally deployed us, they deployed us in a group of 3 police cars, four police officers in each car. And then they gave us a sector that we're going to patrol. So we're driving around, and all of it driving down some residential street. The 4 of us, the 12 of us, and all of a sudden we start taking rounds. The police cars got hit with rounds. We bail out. We take cover behind the police car. We're putting out that we need a help call, that we're taking rounds, and it just goes into the queue.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, okay, we'll get to you when we get to you, but you're kind of on your own. And
Nobody there to help.
That was the most terrifying time of my life,
Yeah.
where I thought, okay, we're on our own. We have to take care of ourselves because it's just us 12 guys, and we're all from Hollywood Division. And when the dust finally settles, we didn't even see where muzzle flashes were coming from, so we couldn't even return fire because it would just be random. And we're in a residential area. We're not going to just start cranking rounds off because we did not know where the rounds were coming from.
It's like the city's going to
And then
swallow
finally,
you up.
Oh, and I thought, okay, this is what combat feels like, because I was
Yeah.
never in the military and I never experienced combat. And I think that was the closest I've ever came to a combat type situation.
Oh, absolutely.
And, luckily none of us got hurt. There were no police officers killed during the riots. A couple of them got shot. And the dust settles, and I was like, wow. And then it kicked off in Hollywood Division. So they said, everybody from Hollywood Division, go back to Hollywood Division. There, it's blowing up there. And it was like landmines all over the city. And you could see the news media shooting, and there's fires everywhere.
Yeah.
Just burning the whole city. And it was everywhere. Hollywood Division, the Valley, San Pedro. It was just out of control, crazy. And luckily it only lasted for about 3 days. And then they imposed a curfew, and it was eerie coming to work the next day because we went on 12 on, 12 off. It's called mobilization.
Yep.
Calling everybody back from vacation and basically just trying to get as many police officers on the streets. And then after about 3 days, it really calmed down with the curfew. The National Guard showed up, and we were in cleanup mode. All the looting, all the stuff. And I was lucky. After the 3rd day, I was picked to be in a unit where we were recovering all the stolen property. And most of our clues came from the neighbors. It's like, hey, my neighbor all of a sudden came home with a whole bunch of new furniture, and all their old stuff is out on the street. And so we had what we call we tip.
Yeah.
And basically, we would go to the we tip, knock on a door, and say, hey, we want to know if you found any possibly stolen property. Yeah, we found my entire living room, bedroom, and dining room set. We found that on the street, and we just thought it was free, so we just took it. But I said, okay, well, we're taking it. And we would just go in and take it from them. You don't have a problem with that, right? Because if you do have a problem, we have detectives on standby that'll write a search warrant. Yeah, no, you just take it. No, they just didn't want to go to jail. That's what it
Yeah, yeah.
was. And so we ended up, I became a you heard of starving student movers. We became starving police officer movers. And we
The
rented a
repo
big
men.
box truck, and we were recovering
Oh my
hundreds of
gosh.
thousands of dollars of property
Wow.
all over just Hollywood division at the time. And it was a crazy time.
I had no idea that happened. Good on the city for actually doing that. I figured if an event like that happens, it's just all a wash and whatever, they got away with it. That's really heartening to hear that
No,
the city actually went, no, we'll go get it back for you. That's awesome.
yeah, we had the news media following us. I was on the news. I was on the media on the news channels, the local news channels, every single day
Now
because
we'll
it
be
was a great
shaming this
gig.
family.
It was a great gig because no uniform. You wore jeans, tennies, and a raid jacket, and we would just go down this list. Okay, we're going to this address on St. Andrew's Place. Knock on the door. Hey, did you find any new furniture? Yes. This is all. I found this on the street. It's all yours. Take it.
That's
It
too
was it was
funny.
it was kind of crazy. It was all consent. I mean, the legalities of it were like, okay, because usually you find out, you do an investigation, you do write a search warrant, you find out what was stolen, and, all that stuff. Yeah, no, we didn't do any of that. There were so many people in jail that the courts went into a 24-hour arraignment court, and it was just unprecedented in the city of LA.
That is crazy, man. I remember when I was at Backgrounds, um, I remember a few days when I was there 2 years, but I think there was 2 times that I came in and everybody who was a cop, and half of them I didn't even, because there's a lot of people in the periphery of Backgrounds too in personnel, all in uniform. I'm like, oh, that guy's a cop? I didn't know that. And then I was like, I asked one of my buddies, I'm
Yeah,
like,
all the detectives were in uniform.
yeah, I'm like, why is there so many uniforms? Like, oh, it's the same people. There's just whatever you called it, a 12-hour, 12 on. There was some
Yeah,
kind of
mobilization.
there was a mobilization because I think it was like BLM was downtown, or it turned out to be a big nothing. But they, you could tell all these detectives were like, I gotta wear this friggin' uniform.
Yeah, I know. It's like you're a detective and you have to wear a uniform. It's like, oh, I haven't worn a uniform in 10 years. This is going to be like wearing my uniform's going to say body glove on it. It's going to be so tight.
Yeah,
It's
a
like a
lot of,
stuffed sausage in a uniform. It's like, oh, this is not fun.
lot of
It's
stress
like, oh, maybe
buttons.
I should have got my uniform tailored. I should have checked it.
Yeah, it's funny. I have to say though, from seeing a lot of different PDs, LA did like, even the guys that were like, it wasn't fitting so good, they still weren't fat. Like there are cities around the U.S. where there are some real
Oh,
fatties. I mean, some cities let their cops get so fat, it is mind-boggling. It's like, this guy's
yeah,
got a fupa that's covering his crotch, and he's
yeah.
walking.
Well,
You're like, damn.
yeah, they told us. Yeah, they told us that in the academy. They said, okay, some of you people are not going to keep up with your physical fitness, and pretty soon your belt buckle and your Sam Brown is going to disappear. And for the women, your gun is going to start going parallel to the ground. And it's like, ooh, boy, they're so right on that.
Yep, absolutely. Barry, can you tell us about a heartwarming case or call that you went on?
Well, not one specifically, but I'll tell you what I did. I was a homicide detective for the last 22 years of my career. And I decided to work, I wanted to work homicide just because homicide is the ultimate crime, the
Yeah,
killing of another human being, and being able to solve it. I always thought, when I was a kid, I was always playing cops and robbers, and I was always the cop, and my cousins and my neighbors were always the robbers. And I always thought of working homicide when I made detective. I made detective in 2000. I started working homicide in 2001. And so I really enjoyed it. I liked it. And I said, what other job on the police department can you say that you brought closure, or I don't even like to say the word closure. I like to say justice to a family whose loved one was murdered, from
yeah,
the crime scene to the conviction. And I thought that was a pretty cool calling for me. And
absolutely.
I really wish I had made detective a little sooner, but I didn't make detective till I had 13 years on the job, and I was in the field the whole time. And when I made detective, I got to meet a lot of family members whose loved one was murdered. And basically, you stick with that family from the crime scene to the conviction, and you develop a relationship and a bond with that family. And sitting in court on sentencing day when they get life without parole or death was pretty rewarding for me. And I
Yeah,
still to this day keep in contact with some of the families that I helped throughout the years and brought their killer of their loved one to trial. And that was pretty rewarding for me. And that's what I
absolutely.
always wanted to do. And I thought, wow, what's more rewarding for a family to come to you and say, thank you. Thank you for believing it in this case. Thank you for bringing justice to our loved one. And we'll never have closure because we're never going to forget. But doing that was very, very gratifying to me.
Absolutely. God bless you. Yeah, give the family some peace at least, you know?
Right.
That's awesome, man. Um, Popular question on the show is advice to new police officers. A lot of people who listen are in backgrounds or thinking about becoming cops. What would you tell people getting into the profession now besides don't do it?
Well, nowadays I usually say, look for other options. But if your heart's set, because being a police officer is not just a job. I'm not going to say it's like the military. It's not just a job. It's an adventure. I'm not going to say like the military uses their recruiting. It's
Right,
not just a job. It's a calling. And if you, because nobody goes into police work to be rich. Nobody is going
right,
to be the CEO of and making millions and millions of dollars. The pay is adequate, and the pay, I believe it's still not enough, but I believe the pay is adequate to live a comfortable life. And one of the biggest things I can tell to new police officers is take care of yourself before you take care of before you can take care of anybody else. And when I say that, I mean it by, you know, mental health is huge with our department because with police agencies all across the country, being a police officer, you have a certain stigma that's attached to you because you're the guy they're calling to come to the house and take care of the problem. You're the guy that's going to the business to try to solve a business dispute. And if you think you're going to solve everybody's problems in that 10, 15 minutes that you're responding to a call, that's not going to happen.
right.
That's just pipe dreams. So what I would say to new police officers is if they really want to come on the job, don't come on it for the money. Don't come on it for the benefits. Don't come on the job for the glory because it ain't like TV. TV is great. You see them solve crimes, they solve murders, they get the DNA back after the commercial, and they solve a murder case in 40 minutes,
Right.
20 minutes of commercials. So it's not like that. Even though Adam 12 was my biggest recruiter, when I got to the police department, I found out what it was really like. And I found out that it was kind of an eye opener for me. I was in culture shock. I grew up in an upper white middle class family, and I get shipped to probably the most depressed area of the city in the entire city, Southeast Division's a part of South LA. Public housing, multiple generations of welfare recipients, and what I think the biggest advice I can give is when you come on the job, talk about it. Talk about it. Talk about what you're feeling. Talk about what you're going through because you're going to see some pretty evil stuff. And the biggest fear that we have as police officers is we bottle it up because you can't show any weakness. You put up a brick wall in front of your heart and your soul, and make sure that you talk about it, that you get it out, because our department, especially LAPD, if you disclose that you're having some issues with sleeping, you're having some issues with that house that was on fire and they pulled out 10 dead kids, and you're dealing with that, talk to somebody about it. And the reason why people don't come forward is because they get a stigma that, oh my God, you can become a liability. We can't give you a gun to go out there and police. We have to put you in what we call the rubber gun squad. and then you can pretty much kiss your career goodbye. So I think that the biggest thing is for new police officers coming on, and I don't know why they don't teach this in the academy. They should, but we're humans, and we have to make sure that we take care of ourselves before we can take care of anybody else.
Absolutely.
Because and as a supervisor for many years, I would see hard charging police officers, and then all of a sudden their production drops off. Their attitude changes. They get upset at the smallest things. And it says, okay, something may be going on in their personal life that we don't know about. And a lot of people will say, well, it's none of our business. That's their personal life. I said, no, we have a responsibility to our people as supervisors. We have a responsibility as peers to make sure our people are okay. And until that stigma changes, until they can have a comfortable where they can come to a supervisor and say, hey, I'm having difficulty sleeping. I'm starting to drink a little too much. I'm starting to self-medicate with alcohol. I'm starting to becoming withdrawn. And those are the kind of things that can be fixed. And that's what the Wounded Blue does. They help people that are suffering from this kind of stuff. And that's why I felt so strong about the Wounded Blue. And because their slogan, never forgotten, never alone, is true. Because it's anonymous from their own police agency. It's completely separate. And there's an 800 number you can call if you're having issues. And there's a 24/7 hotline that can help you. They'll put you in touch with one of our peer support people and our peer support team, and we will make sure that you get the help that you need.
It's awesome.
And if we can't, and a lot of people just want to talk. They just want to talk. They just want to know that they're not alone.
Sure.
That all of us on the peer support team are all police officers and police officers' wives. So they understand that we've all been there. And that's why I got involved with the Wounded Blue, was because I don't want to see, if one cop doesn't kill himself or herself, I've succeeded. And that's one of the biggest things that I feel, that for new police officers, take care of yourself. When you're having issues, make sure that you reach out to somebody, whether you reach out to another peer, or you reach out to your wife, your brother, your sister. Just get help.
Absolutely. TheWoundedBlue.org. And I like here, too, we're on the contact portion of the website. You can even just text BLUE to 877-810-0911, which is a great option, especially for the younger generations that don't even actually like talking on the phone. You can just text over, which is phenomenal. That's great.
Absolutely.
Yes. Great option.
And we're not here. We're here to help you and to make sure that you get some help, because none of us have the answers, and we can always refer somebody and say, hey, let me put you in contact with somebody, a clinician, somebody who can help it. But we're basically just the first line, and they can talk to us, and a lot of people just want somebody to listen to them. And they have this fear of going to their own agency because their agency may deem them rubber gun squad material. Some agencies just fire you. If you disclose that you're having issues, and upper management, and I use that term management, doesn't understand that, because their responsibility is for liability on the department. And they can't take a chance if you're struggling, if you're going through some hard times, they want to just wash their hands of you. And some agencies, some of these smaller agencies, will just terminate you. And then now all of a sudden, you're in a financial bind. You don't know what to do, especially if you wanted to be a cop your whole life. And now you're just like, okay, what do I do now? They just turned their back on me and fired me. And it's amazing to see how many places do that. I had no idea.
I know. It's brutal. It's the agency, like I was talking about with Randy, because he was, neither of these interviews are out yet, but I've had Randy Sutton on as well, friend of yours and founder of the organization. But like he said, like it's the minority of people who are like, oh, wow, your agency took care of you. That's wonderful. Like most cops you hear from, it's like, oh yeah, no, they made me fight in a weakened state while I was injured. I had to fight for a year to get what they knew they were going to give me anyways, but they're trying to wait it out, which is like disgusting and gross.
You know, there's a really good documentary. It's called The Wounded Blue, and it's on Netflix, and it'll really open your eyes on the traumas and that what we actually go through. I'm sorry, it's not on Netflix. It's on Amazon Prime. And it's called The Wounded Blue.
Is that it right there?
That's it. Yep.
So it's up on the screen right now.
If you can watch that, I watched it and I was in tears.
Yeah.
It was shocking to me.
Yeah, I'm going to have to check it out. I've never seen it.
You should watch it. If everybody watched it, The Wounded Blue, if everybody saw the kind of stuff that we see and the kind of stuff that we experience, The Wounded Blue would never have a problem with money again, because donations would flood, and this organization is run strictly on organizations. They've helped thousands of police officers, and it's a 501c3 nonprofit, and it really it goes by donations. That's the only way they get any money. They don't have sponsors that are giving them money. They don't do commercials where they're giving them money. They're a nonprofit. And poor Randy, every time I talk to him, he's like, oh, I don't know if we're going to have enough money to help this guy. I don't know if we're going to have money. He's always worried about money.
Yeah.
And that's what was the engine driving this machine.
Man, well, it's a wonderful thing that you guys are doing, and God bless you, and thank God that you are doing it. It's so cool. Barry, honored to have you on the show, brother. Great stories, great conversation. I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely, Steve.
In the show
Pleasure
notes
to be here.
Oh, thank you. In the show notes, I will put prominently the Wounded Blue, and you want me to put? Do you have an email at the organization that people could reach out to you directly?
Yeah. Reach out to me directly through. It's Barry Telis, BarryTelis at thewoundedblue.org. That's my direct email.
Excellent. All right, brother. I will put that in there, and I got to do the show outro. Can you hang on for just 2 or 3 minutes?
Absolutely.
Awesome. The great Barry Telis, super fun interview. Always a good time when you have an LAPD guys on. So many stories, and really, really great to hear more about the Wounded Blue. We definitely got to prop them up, and I think I'm gonna give them some shout outs down the road on the show. Just freebies, just because it's taking care of cops and it's doing God's work, helping people. So really, really just wonderful organization. Go check them out. Support them if you can. This is a time in the show when I thank the Patreon supporters, the Patreon sponsors. I truly appreciate and love each and every one of you. The link is in the show notes for that. If you've heard a lot of episodes and you think, I really want to support the show, I want to help keep the lights on over there, the Patreon link is the place to do that. Sergeant and above, you will get a shout out. Much like I'm about to do. Who I'm talking about is the great and powerful Andy Biggs at the lieutenant level. The great Thomas Connell, lieutenant level once again. Now the sergeants, Adam McMahon, Adam Mihal, the great Ben Peters, everybody. Bentley Barnett, Brad Thompson, Dan Carlson from Burley Boards. Check him out on Instagram. Great woodworker. The great Sherry Finch, everybody. Clark Lacoff, ladies and gentlemen. The great David Ellman. Dennis Caraskew, everybody. Give him a hand. Doug and Kelly Newman. Love you guys. Hope Wyoming's going swimmingly. The great Dylan Mosher. Elliot Sykes, everyone. The great Gary Steiner. The handsome George Cariotis. Thank you, George. Greg Gadboy. Ladies and gentlemen, you are the man, Greg. Thank you. Jake Pinito, everybody. James Rose, the great. Jason Labrie, Jason Lau, the great Jason Lau, everybody. John Jordan, the great John Shoemaker. John and Aaron Kate, love you guys. See you at church. Kyle Roberts, everyone. The great Lauren Stimson, the handsome Lane Campbell, everybody. Lisa Gano, holding it down at dispatch. Thank you, Lisa. Michael Roach from Roach Machine AI Solutions. Check him out. Iceman from Motocrop Chronicles, the great Nancy Hammond, Nick Adams, everybody, Paul Maloney, Sergeant Raymond Arsenal, thank you, sir, Richard Tolles, keep on trucking. Be safe out there, brother. The great Sasha McNabb, Scott Young, Sean Clifford, Seth Wright, the great Sheriff Ronald Long. Thank you, sir. Tammy Walsh, holding it down dispatch. Thank you, Tammy. Tony Fahey, William James Long, that's Deputy William James Long to you. Thank you very much. Zachary Pleat and the great George Tessier. Love you, buddy. See you at church. Woo! The list is getting long, guys, and I love it. Thank you so much for the support, and I will see you guys next week.